Welcome to Not the Andrew Neil Show, an idea which came from my good friend Pete, the Naked Blog Man, the man who, the famous original blogger, Scotland's most famous blogger at one point. Thank you, Pete. Today we've got a new guest, so let me introduce my new guest to start with. Kate Higgins, also known as Bird's Eye View.
That's right, yeah.
Well-known political blogger.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, no.
Thank you for that. I am now, absolutely.
You definitely are. Norrie Stewart, political cartoonist. And Norrie, you've been very busy this week, so we might even get round to talking about some of those. And Phil Attridge, Labour Party member, pro-independence, man with strong opinions, and myself, Stewart Lochhead. Let's get straight into First Minister's questions today, and I'll ask everybody for their first overall impressions. Norrie, we'll start with you. Overall impressions?
She's getting better.
Joanne?
She was much more feisty today. She keeps hitting on the fact that Alex doesn't answer the questions, so she gets a definite 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, well, that's a very high score.
8.5, yeah.
I'll give you that.
Babe, our Conservative doll, she...
Ruthie Babes. That's,
Ruthie
yes,
Babe,
I knew a Ruth called Ruthie Babes.
she again, very professional. Gets a point across, says what she wants to say. Wrong-footed him, I felt. It was a difficult one because had he gone the way she wanted, he would have stepped on the toes of the people that are dealing with the drug situation, drug purchases. Willie Rennie. Willie Rennie needs better questions. But again, all three of the opposition leaders are getting a little bit more confident about the delivery. They've found a chink in his armour. They're all asking him to answer questions that he doesn't really want to answer.
Out of 10?
Willie Rennie, I'll give him a 6. Ruth, I'll give her an 8.
Okay.
Quite
Kate?
good to her.
Yeah, I don't think there's an awful lot to disagree with in that assessment.
Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, I think absolutely the point about Willie Rennie is well made in that, you know, nobody mentioned what he had to ask at all on the Twitter feed. So, you know, that's a sign that he was asking something totally irrelevant that nobody wanted to talk about. I think absolutely that for a long time Alex Salmond was the big beast in the jungle, and he coasted FMQs because he knew what to expect week in, week out, and I think, you know, the leadership team are having to do some serious thinking. I think there's a danger for Joanne Lamont in constantly going with the women's issues stuff, in that they will work out eventually how to respond to that, and I think she needs to come out of left field maybe next week with something totally different, because she's been on this territory for quite a wee while. But I'd agree with Ruth Davidson in that, you know, she's had a tough week. There was a poll on Tory House, which they conduct amongst the members. Tory House, where they conducted amongst their membership, showing that her ratings amongst her members are plummeting. And there are a number of issues around why that is and what's going on there. So, you know, that's not a good place in which to kind of be, but I think she is coming into her own actually at FMP. She's finding a niche in that she's finding key questions on big issues to ask, and definitely making them come up with substantive answers rather than the kind of pantomime we've had before.
Yeah. So you're giving them score out of 10?
Oh, you know, I mean, despite all that, you know, it's hard to say, you know, that Alex Salmond puts a foot wrong week in, week out, you know, he knows how to deal with it, but there is definitely an issue. So 7 out of 10 for him, but I'd agree with Norrie's scores for the women, 8 out of 10, and Willie Rennie around 5, because he needs better questions.
Well, at least he didn't have Tavish Scott behind the blowing the strings of speech.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
He always looks like a puppet with Tavish behind him. Phil?
Yeah, again around can't disagree with what everybody's saying. I think Joanne is getting a lot better, a lot more confident. She tends to look to the front. She doesn't keep looking around the back to see, well, that she's getting the support of somebody's waiting to stab her in the back. And also Ruth Davison just does get better every week. And also the subject she brought up on, like, you know, but basically the drugs that's keeping McGrady alive. Well, that actually helps the SNP as well, because now everybody knows why McGrahy's alive, because he's getting better treatment than the rest of the UK. Willie Rennie, a cheeky question, I thought, and I can see why Alex Salmond didn't bother answering it at all, because Sousa hasn't made anything. I would give Well, I'll actually give Joanne and Alec the same, because he does manage to answer and do it, and he's very well briefed. So yeah, just to go, I'd give them both 9, and I'd give Ruth an 8 and Willie. Well, I can't really go above 5. 5 will do.
Well, I'm beginning to think I should just let you guys do the talking this week, because I can't really add very much more to that. We'll come back to anything in more detail after that. So let's roll straight on to the next point, which what might be any sound bites that you noticed that will be in tomorrow's papers or on the TV news tonight.
Well, I quite like the fiction section one from Joanne. You know, it's another one. Fiction section in your local library.
Yes, and library near you.
So basically, it's promises for tomorrow from Alex.
He is weak on that. That was a promise back in 2007 to improve under 5 childcare.
But he's still got the defence. What did you do? Why are you criticising me? You had years and years to do it, you know?
Well, what can you do? They do the Westminster, yes.
And then he looks south and just compounds it. It's very hard for the Labour Party, because he's going to get the last word on this. Very hard for them. But I think you're right. I think she has to wrong foot him. She has to get off the woman's subject at some point. I mean, this is the first week she hasn't mentioned the 400 women losing their jobs. So they're moving on. I can understand why they're doing it, because the SNP are not popular with women, and that's the vote they need to capture. She's going to hammer away at that.
That's the role of Joan McAlpine in the record, I think, isn't it? Over the heads of everybody else.
But she needs to wrong foot him. She needs to find something that she can slip in.
But it's not predictable.
Exactly, because he's so well briefed. He really is. You know.
Okay.
I think she picked the wrong subject this week, because she's on territory that Alex Salmond is absolutely uncomfortable on. You know, any time of the day, talking around touchy-feely children's, women's issues. It's just not where his comfort zone lies. She's identified that. That is absolutely bread and butter territory for Joanne Lamont. She can talk about it till the cows come home. But going on nursery provision and childcare today was the wrong one, because he had that big announcement at the conference, so he had something that he could hit back at with on it, and it was a bit of a strange choice actually. But I think if you look at it as a soundbite, as a mother, you know she is on the side then of every single woman who is a parent in Scotland, and Salmond has very little to say on that, and that is discomforting for them. I think that is a key set, and we'll hear more of that.
She did, she mentioned that the Manana government again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that will play.
Yeah.
That will, if she keeps hitting that one, that will become a sore spot.
And generally the line around what families need today, rather than, focus on what families need today rather than always on the constitutional, and that's where the Manana.
Well, she did, and she came in there with connecting the after the referendum, even the promise for the 600 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't kick in until after the referendum, so there's a lot there to play with.
I think today maybe pointed the direction the Labour Party is going to go in as part of the unionist fight against the referendum.
Okay.
Before we get on to the detail, Phil?
Action now, and then just about every other phrase was now, and what you were saying, women don't like salmon. I mean, they know that women apparently just, when they take polls, he's not popular. So really hitting home at that.
I think Salmond is very much he's a Marmite politician for women. They love him or they loathe him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difficulty. There's not an awful lot of territory in between on him personally, and that is the problem. So it's not that they hate him, but Joanne Lamont has definitely found that there is, and he's just not comfortable there on that territory at all. He struggles, to talk about these issues in a way that he feels comfortable.
He brought in, he referenced back to the abuse of power, the stooshy about Joan McAlpine's first Daily Record article. She said today, talk about the abuse of power.
Yeah.
You're taking the people for granted, she said today.
She's delivering. The writing hasn't changed. Whoever's behind her is the same person. She's delivering it better.
Right.
and it's much more effective.
Ruth?
She's not doing a seriously hard, you know, woman thing. She's kind of found a place in between it, and I think it'll be effective. I do.
Okay, well, let's come back to let's come back now. Let's get into the detail a bit more. And you've touched on the kind of strategy, the tactics. I mean, you're always looking at the spin angle, Norrie. What were they trying to get Joanne to say behind? What did they want? You know, what were they trying to get Alec to say in response to Joanne?
They wanted, all three of them wanted to put him in a place where he would make a commitment that he couldn't back up.
Okay.
It's essentially what happened today, and he didn't do it.
He was certainly very good with Willie Rennie. He just avoided that.
Well, he wasn't particularly clever about doing it.
I was surprised how well briefed he was about the cancer issue.
It's going to come up. I mean, you can link McGracky's name to a drug you can't get in the UK. I mean, that was a given, I think. He had an opportunity with Willie Rennie to put the boot in.
He didn't
take it.
No.
So,
I thought that in general, in fact, he didn't. He was very, almost statesman-like today. He really didn't have a go at anything personal in either of them.
He had the opportunity. I mean, he could have gone down, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion line. He got there in the end, but he could have knocked him down right at the beginning. He didn't do that. Now, he might have moved off his comfort zone. He might be trying to be too statesman-like, because he was very good on his feet, especially last year. I mean, there was very little that he didn't hit straight back at them. I don't know what he's playing at this year. They might have become too clever for their own good in some ways. Be a statesman. Don't get embroiled in it. But that's what he's good at.
Kate, what do you think?
I think it was a much better FMQs all round, because it was there was quite a lot of substance rather than the mudslinging and not answering and avoiding the questions.
There was very little desk banging this week.
There was, and I think that it just makes for better politics. I think, you know, we need FMQs should know, you know, it fell into the trap of becoming the puerile pantomime that is on at Westminster, and it was never intended to be like that. I thought it was better today. I think it was interesting that Salmon just blanked Willie Rennie on the suture thing, but I actually think he gave a hugely impressive, substantive answer to the follow-up from Drew Smith about we are having a proper consultation, we will review that, we can't bring it out in advance of the elections because everybody goes into Purda just shortly in a couple of weeks' time, and that's responsible government. You know, 50,000 people have responded to that consultation. The least the government owes them is that they give due consideration to everybody's views. So
we're talking equal marriage here.
Sorry?
Are we talking equal
marriage? Absolutely. So I think that's spot on. And I think, you know, in terms of, I think Salmon was quite statesmanlike. I do feel that he was wrong-footed a little bit in terms of just being asked to deliver on substance and answer proper questions. And I think the whole the Al McGrachy drugs one was really interesting, and the whole reference to Scottish Medical Council. I'm not sure it is the Scottish Medical Council that makes these decisions. We do have an equivalent of NICE in Scotland.
It's not called NICE.
It's not. I think it changed. It merged. It used to be QUIS, Quality Improvement Scotland. I think it's now Quality Health Scotland or something like that. When you know, it's one of those specialist boards. You know, I think he handled it quite well, but I think in the substance, not great.
I mean, the point that I picked up that he made was that 60% go through, essentially because they're going to charge less money. So basically what he was saying was, well, if you want value for money, we're going to use this system, and I'm not going to get in the way of it.
It's certainly overriding an existing system, and I'm pretty sure he must have been accurate when he said no government has ever overruled. And I liked where he went down about this question. I think he did wrong with Ruth there about this cancer development fund. Is that what it's called? And it sounded as though that it really did sound like something that.
Is that a charity?
No, I think she's calling for. I think they had it in their manifesto.
It's a government, it's sort of a government or a health fund. They have in England, but it hasn't worked particularly well in England. I thought Salmon was very good. I thought the content all around was very, very good. Apart from Willie Rennie, I can see why I answered the question, but I thought Salmon, again, statesman-like, just ignored it with the contempt it deserved. But Salmon's actually in referendum mode already. That's why you're getting him like that. Smart Alec is still in there. It's in his ammunition pouch at the back. He doesn't need it now because he has to attract all different parts of the Scottish population. And he'll be sitting, and this will be part of the PR. Then you'll get another bit, and he'll start to appeal to all little bits of percentages that add up to that magic figure of 51% in 2.5 years.
Right, one point that nobody else has brought up, I felt that Christine Graham's question, which he knew was coming, caught him. He avoided the question. This is the question of the Crown Office, the establishment of the judiciary really in the targets of everybody who's... We're talking Lockerbie, we're talking McGrackie, everybody who's watching this will know what we're talking about. He did avoid that again, kind of pushed it into the long grass by saying there's a process, it's got to be in a court of law, everybody's got to agree. We're talking about, of course, the report that's now been leaked to the SHCC, I forget, the Scottish Criminal
Case Review Board.
Everybody's been in a complete state of denial about McGrackie. They paid the witness £2 million to change his story. The police fleeted him all around Scotland. It's been as plain as the nose on your face for years that McGrackie was...
Well, here's the question for us.
Spit it up.
Here's the question for each of us. One sentence answer each of us. Will there be casualties at the Crown Office? Will there be casualties at the top of Scottish justice?
So.
No.
It'll be a first.
Yeah, I hope so, but it doesn't work like that.
No, there won't. And I think, as one of the people who would welcome a public inquiry into it, I think there has to be an acknowledgement that the culture in the judicial system and in the Crown Office and elsewhere has changed hugely, immeasurably, actually even since the Al McGrackie trial, and that different personalities, different structures, and we may go back and look and uncover lots of things that shouldn't have happened way back in the run-up to the trial and the justice system, but I think to say that they then apply today, there would need to be a kind of reckoning against changes that have come through in the last few years, and see where they're still learning to be applied. I think one of the areas where that could do with a stick being poked at it is the police and policing in Scotland, in terms of there are lots of
That's a good issue.
Anecdotes and sotto voce conversations around the links in the police and the role the police played, certainly in this case and in other cases, and I think that's probably the one area where there's been some cultural shift, but perhaps not enough.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Special guest today, Kate Higgins, Norrie Stewart, Phil Attridge, and thanks to everybody for watching.